Hi, this is Ross Lynn Leone. I'd like to introduce my son, Ross Leone III, who is chairman of the Guadalupe County Libertarian Party. And I'd also like to thank Nolan Schmidt, who is handling our camera and has been an invaluable help in putting these sessions together. So let's get started.
First question, why are you currently running for Congress?
Well, I'm running for Congress because I don't like what I see in the way our government is serving its people. We have a politically corrupt system that we have Democrats that spend, then tax. We have Republicans who make false promises about smaller government, eliminating departments. Instead, they add departments, and who generally don't govern the way they say they will govern. It's time for a new day, a new approach, and I think the Libertarian Party is the party that can do that.
All right. What should be done about the country's current economic status?
Well, we have tremendous debt, which sooner or later the piper will have to be paid. We have a stagnant economy. We have enemies throughout the world that we are spending trillions to defend when they hate us. And the main thing we need to do is get government out of the way. We need to let the economy function as a true free market economy. That free market philosophy of Hayek and others is the best way to allocate resources and choices. And if we cut regulation to the bone, if we got government out of the business of regulating every part of our daily lives, if we got government to stop interfering in so many different areas of life, the economy would take off. As Reagan said, the problem is government. It's not the solution. We've proved that in the last 20 years. What has been improved by government intervention? Nothing.
What are your thoughts on the legalization of marijuana?
The war on drugs is just another one of our failures. I've had a number of people contact me in the campaign saying that they have benefited greatly from using marijuana for a number of medical problems that cause them severe pain, from glaucoma to pain therapies, to just any number of tragic stories where people have tried many conventional medicines, have not gotten any help. And so I think there is a strong argument for legalizing marijuana. First of all, prohibition, apparently we didn't learn much from it. Prohibition gave rise to the whole specter of organized crime in this country. Prohibiting alcohol was a vast failure. All it did was make millions and millions of dollars for criminals, and now we have the same situation with marijuana. We need to treat all drug issues as health issues and help people find treatment and education, and not criminalize it and put people that are otherwise nonviolent and just are trying to live their life the way they choose. So I have no problem with decriminalizing marijuana, and I think also by reclassifying it as not a narcotic or drug, that it would then open up vast opportunities for research one of the problems is it's almost it's illegal in this country to do any really exhaustive studies or research into the effects of marijuana. There have been a few done in England that show very positive results, but overall, decriminalizing not only would be a more sane approach to dealing with this issue, but it would also provide opportunities to actually study it and find out what the effects of marijuana use actually are. We need research into this.
What do you think should be done about the long failed efforts on the war on drugs?
Well, I think I've basically addressed that. We basically need to realize that every war we've tried to fight in my lifetime has been a failure. From Vietnam to the war on poverty, to the war on terrorism, and to the war on drugs. By making something illegal, you only increase the lure and temptation, particularly of young people, to use it. Hard drugs are a serious problem, but even then we need to treat them more as a health issue. And putting people in jail simply for drug use, without any other offenses, is the surest way of creating a lifetime criminal. And it ensures that they don't get the help they need.
What should be done with our foreign relations with other countries, whether they be allies or enemies?
Well, first of all, we need to start learning the difference. Too many times these days we are actually treating our enemies better than our friends. And our enemies, we should not be funding governments that actively promote terrorism, that attack us in word and deed, and that prove themselves not to be our friends. We certainly need to support our allies, our true friends, and many times we've turned our back on them. Our friends look on us as being unreliable, untrustworthy, and weak. However, I don't think that we should be parceling out billions of dollars of foreign aid, in many cases even to friends, because first of all, we don't know what that money really goes for. In many cases, even to countries that are not necessarily our enemies, the money doesn't go to a good purpose. It goes into government coffers. And I do believe that we have many, many issues, $20 trillion of debt and a very damaged and weak infrastructure that we need to spend money on. And we simply can't afford the luxury of supporting the whole world. America first. We need to help our allies in every way we can, but I think we need to start rediverting a lot of foreign aid funds to the U.S. That's where they would be better spent.
What should be done about the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare?
Repeal it. It is a total failure. It's an awful piece of legislation, thousands of pages. Nobody knew what they were getting into with it. A totally un-American concept of saying you must buy a commercial insurance product. It's just totally un-American to tell people how they can spend their money.
Is there anything that should be done with the current federal programs and organizations like Social Security, the IRS, NSA, or any others that you might think of?
IRS should be abolished. Now, I say that as someone who worked and retired 25 years with IRS. I was in marketing, I was in management. I know that the people of the IRS, the worker bees, are great people, hardworking, and they do their best to serve the public in a good job. But the management of IRS that is politically motivated has used the IRS for its own political purposes, to attack conservative groups, to attack groups that they don't support the liberal agenda. So that's one good reason for getting rid of the IRS. Another is, for over 200 years, this country got along quite well without an income tax. As a British colony, as a confederation of free states, and as the United States, we have had more time without an income tax than with one. The Founding Fathers believed this. They knew the income tax was not something they believed in, that it was in fact illegal. And they could have put in an income tax if they thought it was justified. They didn't. It was Mr. Lincoln's war that first gave us an income tax. And it was quickly, after the war, found to be unconstitutional. It took the 16th Amendment to legalize it. And again, that's a very questionable piece of legislation that was passed without proper review, or some people even doubt that it was legally passed. But I would repeal the income tax. It should be replaced with, Gary Johnson supports a consumption tax, basically would be like a sales tax. I don't go quite that far. I personally support a withholding on dividends, interest, and wages, and it would be a very limited withholding of, say, 5%, and then on corporate incomes of up to 10%. And I would abolish all the current income tax and the unemployment tax and corporate taxes. The income tax, unfortunately, creates an atmosphere for abuse. People use it for political purposes. The rich don't pay what they should. And I believe everyone should pay the same rate. The loopholes that Congress always puts in mean that many wealthy people do not pay their fair share. A straight withholding on interest, dividends, wages, without deductions means you don't file a return, you don't pay an accountant, you don't get audited, and since the money never gets into your pocket, you don't owe any. It's already paid up front. Everybody has income taxes and different taxes withheld from their paychecks right now. You can't miss what you never had. George Washington didn't miss television. And if you do a small withholding to finance the necessary functions of government, then that means the money that gets to the individual's pocket, they shouldn't have a big tax bill on April 15th. They shouldn't have to ask the government to give me back the money I overpaid. They shouldn't have to pay for this huge bureaucracy that is very expensive. The tax I propose would be efficient, effective, low, and would not involve the huge bureaucracy that the IRS has become.
Should Edward Snowden be pardoned?
I think some of the revelations that have come forth because of Edward Snowden, we're very fortunate to have found out some of this information. I don't necessarily totally condone everything that he did. I don't know everything about the story. I haven't seen the movie. But I think there is a strong case for considering him to be pardoned. Certainly the allegations that he's been charged with, that where the penalties are very severe, I think they're a bit of an overreach. And I think in overall, while I don't think his methods were totally perfect, the result has been positive. In a general sense, we need to have more protection for whistleblowers, the people who risk themselves, their careers, their lives, because they think there is something being done that isn't right. That's something to be protected, not attacked for.
What measures would be best suited for immigrants who want to either live or work in this country?
Well, I basically support Gary Johnson's immigration plan, which he wants to have a simple, easy, quick system of work visas, that if you want to come to the country and work, we welcome you. We have jobs for you, and we want you to be welcome in the community. It doesn't mean you become a citizen, doesn't mean you vote, but it does now mean that you would be free to go back and forth to your home, which now people sneak in and work and they can send money home, but then they're trapped here and they have to risk everything to ever get a chance to return home and see their families. That's not right. We do need a work visa system with thorough background checks so that only people really interested in just making a better life for themselves and their family are the ones we want in, not terrorists, not people who don't believe in the American system.
The VA has become infamous for its mistreatment of veterans. What would be the best efforts to help the veterans who are not getting the help that has been promised to them?
Well, it is just shabby and awful how veterans have been treated. We need to strengthen the whole system of VA hospitals and make sure they have the necessary funding and resources, make sure they are able to offer worthy careers to attract the highest level of medical care and medical professionals. But VA hospitals can't be in every town in this country. And for those people that aren't convenient to a VA hospital, they should be able to go to the doctor of their choice. They should be able to go to the hospital of their choice. And just as the government promised, we should own up to the promise and provide for their health care.
What are your thoughts about the gun control issue and the media's negative input on gun rights?
Well, it's nice that we have the Bill of Rights, and with freedom of speech and religion and all the other rights, but the one right that secures the others is the right to bear arms. Founding fathers knew this. They fought a revolution against a government that the first thing it did was try to take all the guns. So without the right to bear arms, you cannot be secure in any of your other rights. So I strongly support the right to bear arms. And it doesn't mean that you have the right to have a pop gun against a machine gun. Right to bear arms is not about hunting. It's not about sport shooting. It's about defense. And you have a right to have weapons that allow you to properly defend yourself. I have great fear of what will happen to the right to bear arms if Hillary Clinton was somehow to get elected. She's already made it clear that she does not believe in an individual right to bear arms. She has criticized the Supreme Court case that made things much safer in Washington, D.C. by reiterating that the right to bear arms is not a collective right. It's not a right of the militia. It is a right of the individual. Donald Trump has said that he supports that, and he has endorsements from some leading gun groups. But I don't know how much of that talk is simply convenience. These people live in protected worlds with armed guards at their side every moment. If they truly don't believe in the right to bear arms, then let them give up their own guns. Let them walk the streets with the citizens that they expect to walk the streets unarmed.
What are your thoughts on the current state of religious freedom in our country?
I think religious freedom is widely attacked, and we're in danger of losing our religious freedoms. In Houston, the city tried to pass an ordinance, a Democratic government. Democrats will say they believe in the right to free speech, but they're always the first ones that try to shut down free speech. The city tried to pass an ordinance there that would require pastors to submit their sermons for review to a city bureaucrat. Now, if that's not an attack on religious freedom, I think you're missing something if you don't see that. At the same time, we can't regulate or legislate morality. Republicans want to approve every aspect of your life. Democrats want to control every aspect of your life. Libertarians believe in basic core values, one of which that, okay, I may have my own religious beliefs. I know libertarians that are atheists, that are Muslim, that are all flavors of Christianity. And the one thing they do agree on is the right of everyone else to worship as they wish. That is what the core of religious freedom is all about. Founding fathers came from England, where you had a state religion. One religion organized by the state, Church of England. What they said was that everyone should have a right to worship the way they please, as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others. That's basically as libertarian as it gets.
There have been concerns over GMO food, especially since many of these products that contain GMOs are not labeled. So what should be done about labeling GMOs?
They should be fairly labeled. It's so obvious I don't even understand the question. But I'm glad that you bring that up, because that is another campaign issue that is widely overlooked. Neither of the parties want to address it because, after all, Monsanto, the big Satan of the agricultural food industry, they control Roundup and they control GMOs, and they want to control the world's food supply. You see, you can't patent corn or wheat or strawberries. But if you make a slight genetic modification, then you have a whole new creature. You might still call it a strawberry or a corn, but it's been modified. And so that can be patented. And now you get to actually control it as a product, the same as if it was a toothbrush or a can of hairspray. Our food supply should not be able to be controlled by a small group of agricultural companies, agricultural and chemical companies. Now, in some areas of Europe, there have been severe restrictions on GMOs. They're much more progressive on this than we are. Hawaii has tried to pass a strong law on GMOs. And of course, anytime a local individual state tries to get control of this problem, Monsanto and the other big giants of industry get together, pool their resources, and make sure the lobbyists go to work and stop the states from addressing these issues. Now, before I announced as a candidate for Congress, District 15, I wrote Ted Cruz this very question. And Ted Cruz said he didn't think there was any need for labeling, didn't see that it would be used to attack agribusiness, that it would not have a good effect. Well, libertarians believe you have a right to put in your body what you want. And so we don't believe in sin taxes for food, tax on potato chips, or everything that somebody somewhere believes is bad for you. Similarly, you can't make informed choices about what you put in your body unless you have information. So this is simply about allowing people the free choice to choose for themselves what they put in their body, and to do that they have to have information. So just a labeling law that requires information about whether a product is genetically modified or whether somewhere along the food chain genetically modified products were used in the production of a product, that's just very free. It should be allowed, should be encouraged, and why would they not want you to know what you're putting in your body? Particularly when there is so much other information. I would a lot rather know whether a product is genetically modified than know how many calories it is, or how many grams of this or grams of that are in it. But certainly that is a very clear choice. We also need to do much more research on genetically modified products. And I'm not ready at this time to say that that should necessarily be made illegal, but certainly the right of the people to know about the food they're buying is just so basic that I can't even imagine why Senator Cruz or any of these other Democratic and Republican lawmakers wish to protect the big business that wants to dominate our food supply.
Right now, there are many young voters who don't think voting will fix any of the problems in this country. What would you say to them?
Well, I saw a recent Quinnipiac poll that showed that Gary Johnson was outpolling Donald Trump among 20 to 34-year-olds. The good thing about young voters is they're willing to look at fresh new ideas. They're willing to look at change. One of the bad things is, yes, it is easy to disenfranchise yourself by becoming discouraged in the system, giving up, and just saying, no point in voting, I can't make a difference. What we need to do is everyone needs, you only have one chance to have a say about your government, and that's the vote. I'm on a Libertarian Party committee about election fraud and election integrity, and we have serious problems in our election system. The abuses of electronic voting, the potential for voter fraud is terrible. Mostly in Texas, the biggest problem is that we have very good state laws requiring how the process of electronic voting should run, but we don't follow the laws. And this is something the Democrats and Republicans, neither one, care about. because after all, they're the main recipients of wrong, fraudulent votes. And we've made a big issue in Texas about who should vote and what it takes to prove you are a voter. That's not the most dangerous kind of voter fraud in this state. That's one vote at a time. The most dangerous part of electronic voting fraud is generally at the county level, where the votes are counted and where software determines how the votes are added up. So we have a lot to do in that. As for young voters, yes, it's tough, but again, I go back to, I made another section talking about how when I was your age, in the 1960s, the Democratic Party was the party in Texas. There was no Republican statewide offices. Republican Party, you had was nothing. Their primaries were basically disregarded. The Democratic Party, the Democratic primary was the election. And more people would turn out for that because that was the real election. And the Democratic Party had a conservative wing, it had a liberal wing, it had a wing in the middle, and it had big divisions in the state between urban and rural areas and by all kinds of demographics. So you voted Democratic, and that was the election that counted. That determined who would be the next state office holder. But that world changed 180 degrees. And today, it's exactly the opposite. Republicans control every major state office. And most counties, although there are a few areas of Democratic stronghold left, several of the inner cities, so forth. But what I say to young people is I have seen it myself turn around 100%. So I know it can be done. And I think that we are in the beginning of another revolution of voting, because people have finally become so fed up with crooked politics and bad candidates and the whole open hostility of the political process. They know there is a better way to do it, and we're trying to help them find the Libertarian Party, and all we say is give the Libertarians a chance. It happened before. We can change the process again, and we can send a message. Every vote for a Libertarian is a message to the Democrats and Republicans that we're fed up, we don't like the way you're running things, and that if you don't change, we'll change for you. And that's why a Libertarian vote is so important.
There has been growing support for third-party candidates, especially with the presidential race. Why is there so much more support for third-party candidates now than in the previous election years?
Well, simply because we have such a bad set of candidates and a bad political system. As a candidate for Congress, one thing I would work on is a political contribution reform. Right now, what we have is the best government money can buy, and that doesn't come out to be very good. We have to quit letting people buy elections. In a forgotten time, the political process was not one based on advertising and marketing. Candidates went out and made speeches and talked to their constituents, and elections were much smaller and closer to home. You had people in local areas that people knew and trusted that supported presidential candidates. Presidential candidates didn't even go out in campaign before in the early years of this republic. Now today, elections are just plain bought. He who spends the most money usually wins. In my own campaign, I have a Democratic candidate that has pledged $1 billion to spend. Well, that's just trying to buy an election. That's not running on your merit. That's not running on issues. That's not campaigning on what you're going to do for people. It's just saying, don't run against me because I'll outspend everything you do. And so that's why I'm running a campaign where one thing you know for sure is I'm the cheapest campaign candidate you could ever vote for, because I don't believe in raising money for political campaigns. Today we have the internet, we have such vast media resources. It's unnecessary to spend the billions of dollars on political campaigns that are being spent this year. Think of the good that could have been done with the several billion dollars that Trump and Clinton have wasted, mostly telling a bunch of lies and calling each other names. So I believe that campaign contributions need to be much more heavily controlled. I think these PACs are evil because they will be the hitmen sent out by the candidates, and the candidates can disavow them and say, well, I didn't say that. My PAC did it. That PAC group did it. Well, that just gets them off the hook, and yet the PACs are spending millions and millions of dollars with slanderous, vicious ads that in many cases aren't even true. And instead of getting information on the issues, this is the kind of costly drivel that people are given to make a responsible decision on.
I have a couple of humorously frivolous questions for you now. First,
humor is a good thing.
What are your thoughts on Aleppo?
You mean the problem the other candidates had, or on Aleppo itself? I know that Gary Johnson was taken to the woodshed a little bit about it, and I think part of it was that he just didn't understand the question, not so much the issue. I think Johnson has pretty well made it clear that we don't believe in interventionism and all this foreign intrigue that we've gotten into in the last 15 years, all with no good result. But I don't think being the president should revolve around whether you know one particular word. It's more a philosophy of how you're going to deal with a whole region of the world. And Johnson's made it quite clear that foreign interventionism by us in the Middle East has been a total disaster. As for Aleppo, it's hard in any of those areas of the Middle East, anywhere in Syria, Iraq, well, the trouble is they don't wear uniforms with a badge on it saying good guy or bad guy. And so, yeah, it's a little hard sometimes to know who the good guys and bad guys are. And plus, they change daily. And then their bottom line is there really aren't any good guys. We've supported groups that we thought were less obnoxious than others, only to find out they morph and mutate into things like ISIS. So the whole idea of getting wrapped up into one word or one little piece of the world obscures the greater issue that we just should not be sticking our nose in everybody else's business unless there is a strong national interest. Every time we have done it, we have just messed things up.
Let's not forget that Clinton led to it, right?
And of course, yeah, well, it's a little hard for Hillary. I'm sure she knows all about it because she's the one that got us into the whole problem, starting with Libya and the Arab Spring and all these unsettling forays into trying to impose our mores into a whole section of the country that is just vastly different culturally from us.
Final question. Who is your favorite foreign leader?
Well, that's a hard one because I don't know if there are too many. First of all, we don't have many friends left in the world. In case anybody didn't notice, we are widely disrespected and hated for our interventionism, for our weakness, for not standing up for the right sides in all these conflicts. It seems like we have a unique capacity for picking the wrong side. But there is a gentleman in, I believe it's Brussels, Belgium, that has spoken. I think he was formerly their prime minister or in their cabinet, and he has made several speeches, one of the few in Europe to take a stand against the Muslimization of Europe, and especially Belgium. I think his name is Gert, can't pronounce the last name, but the pro-Western leader in Belgium who has spoken out against letting Muslims take over Europe is one person I greatly respect.
So not President Duterte of the Philippines.
No, I don't have a lot of respect for him because I think his remarks, while he might have been right in his remarks about Obama, they weren't in good taste. And it shouldn't have been one of the first things that he did as a new president. Plus, it only served to hurt relations between our countries, so that now he seems to be moving towards forcing all U.S. troops out of the Philippines. And we don't have a lot of troops there. We have helped their forces on a training basis, and they do have a problem with Muslim militants in South Philippines. They're very active and are a constant threat. And so I think it was foolish on his part to try to force the U.S. out. I think they should be a strong ally, they should be a friend. And instead he's put barriers in the middle of that process. I don't think it's what the Filipino people wanted. I don't think that's why he was elected. It's one of those things where I think he kind of just surprised everybody. So I hope that isn't a forerunner of how his presidency is going to go. But his remarks were not very nice. Like I say, more in bad taste than anything else.
Also not Vladimir Putin.
I have a certain amount of respect for Putin because he says he is a forceful and strong president in a way that makes me a little envious because that certainly isn't what we have. But it's no doubt that he is trying to rebuild the old Soviet Union. And there are very dangerous things happening. He seems to have his eyes on all of the old remnants of the Soviet Union, like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the smaller elements that don't have much way of defending themselves. And yet at the same time, he's expanding his influence into the Middle East, which by Obama creating a vacuum, we made that rather easy for him. It was a mistake not to get Ukraine into NATO when we had the opportunity. I don't know that he's done there yet, but any of these strongmen types, they only respect strength. And when you show them weakness, you invite more problems with them. I'm reminded of a set of pictures. One showed President Bush, the first, George the First, meeting various leaders all across the world in his administration. And he showed photoshops of him shaking hands with various world leaders. With Obama as a president, there's dozens of pictures of where he goes in and bows. One world leader does not need to bow to another world leader. But Obama repeatedly, in meeting these various Muslims that are running these terror countries, he makes a very polite and bow, like he is subservient to them. It's not a picture of strength. Nothing he does is a picture of strength. And that's why they are encouraged to make hay while the sun shines, as the old saying goes. And I just hope that nothing irreversible happens in the next couple of months, but they are, I think, very tempted to take advantage of Obama's weaknesses while they can, particularly if it begins to look like a victory other than Clinton. And
all good answers. Good to see a Libertarian that has good opinions on foreign relations.
well, it was a long time coming to the Libertarian Party, but I've known a lot of great Libertarians over the years. I worked with Harry Brown, who was twice a presidential nominee, when I was a young man up in New York. And these were people that were pure philosophers of political theory. And one of the problems of the Libertarian Party has been to expand our reach, to reach everyone and not just those few political theorists that are pure of mind. So we're doing a better job of that today, and thankfully our best allies in growing the Libertarian Party are Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I'd like to thank them for all the screw-ups and bad politics and mean, nasty behavior that they exhibit, because everyone starts to tell people that it's Gary Johnson and it's the Libertarians that are the sane people in the room, the adults. Thank you.
Which answers all our questions.
If you have any questions for Ross Lynn Leone, you can email him at rlynnleone@yahoo.com. For more information on the Libertarian Party, you can visit either the national or state parties' websites at www.lp.org or www.lptexas.org.